So good morning, everybody, and welcome to ELT Time MENA, which is our coffee break style advancing learning podcast series. My name is Nathan Waller, and I'm your podcast host today. And if you haven't joined us before for an ELT Time, so each episode I'm joined by a guest, an educator who is based right here in the Middle East and North Africa, or the MENA region. And together we engage in a 30 to 45-minute discussion on a topic of their choosing, usually over a nice cup of tea. This is episode 10 of our second season. And today I am joined by teacher, trainer, and self-professed all-round troublemaker, Basma Abdul Hamied. I like it. It's nice. I think that's nice. Good morning, Basma. Welcome
Good
to our...
morning.
We're really happy to have you with us today. How are you doing?
I'm fine. I'm really fine.
You're doing well, and you're excited to share your stories. And
yay, very much.
You're one of the most, in our pre-podcast catch-up, you're one of the most positive guests that we've had. We've had lots of positive guests, but you are definitely a ball of troublemaking energy, let's say that.
I'm very quiet and very not a lot of troubles.
We're looking forward to learning all about you and your experiences. I know that, so today is a little bit unique in the history of ELT Time MENA, as naturally we won't be drinking any tea because, of course, it's the holy month of Ramadan, and a very warm Ramadan Kareem from both myself and the Macmillan Education team, to both you, Basma, and for anyone who's joining us or listening in today, Ramadan Kareem to you all. We cannot have one, but maybe we can dream in our imagination. Do you have a favorite tea, Basma, that you would be drinking?
Actually, I don't drink tea at all, but I like hot chocolate. So if we were not Ramadan, I would have been drinking hot chocolate.
Yeah, okay, so you would have had a hot chocolate. Are you classic hot chocolate just by itself, cream, marshmallows, special types, flavors?
No, just like hot chocolate without any additions.
Okay.
Me, it's like a lot of sugar already, so I just stick with the basics.
These days you get so many fancy hot chocolates. They have all these things sticking out of them, and people like this.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, so hot chocolates. I would normally have tea. I'm a big tea drinker. I like to try different types of tea. I've got a few favorites, but we've got another one next week, but that'll also be Ramadan. And so I guess we'll have to wait a couple of weeks, and then I'll introduce a new flavor. I've had some really bizarre ones. I've actually had chocolate flavored tea in one episode. It was interesting.
That's really nice. But feel free if you want to drink tea now. I'm okay.
I didn't bring any. I didn't prepare any. Okay, so let's get going. Today's topic is going to be about, I guess, it's about entrepreneurship a little bit, or mostly, I guess. But I think it's going to be a lot of stuff around expanding our profiles as teachers. I guess thinking about ourselves outside of the box, not just kind of finding a job in a school, making lesson plans, delivering classes, rinse and repeat. I guess it's making sure that we are relevant, that we're up to date, that we are developing personally as well as professionally. And I think sometimes those things overlap. So we'll probably cover some of that, I think, in this discussion. It could be about thinking about moving your own career forward, perhaps into new spaces. I know lots of people are interested in teacher training, professional development. They could be interested in management. We've had discussions on this podcast around management before. It could be to fill career gaps. There are many reasons why teachers drift in and out of jobs and work. Sometimes they need to take time off for maternity, for example, to study, for family reasons. There's a whole host of reasons why people could need to change jobs. They might move to another country for family reasons. All of these things, I think, are in the back of our minds when we are developing our careers as teachers. The days of kind of, you get a job, that's it, you're going to be that year 2 teacher for 55 years and retire. Those days, I think, by and large, are largely behind us. So I guess the question behind all of this is, for us as individuals, how do we remain, I guess, relevant and up to date? I think that's the kind of core of our discussion. So I'm going to introduce my lovely guest today. This is Basma Abdul Al-Hamied, hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly, also known as Abla Basma. I can't even get that out almost, talking too much. Anyway, she's a full-time troublemaker. She's a trainer, she's a consultant, she's a team leader, she's an English instructor. She's got lots of experience over 13 years, a lot of that with adults. She's worked in the American University in Cairo and the School of Continuing Education on a variety of different customized courses, delivering workshops, all of these types of things. She's got a very long and very impressive CV and list of achievements. So I'm not going to go through it all because it would take up the entire 30 minutes, but I'm going to drip feed, I think, some of these things into our discussion. There are certain things that I want to bring up. One is your work on Teflship, which is a social enterprise that you started up. We can also talk about some of the awards that you've won around entrepreneurship, which gives us that kind of flavor for the podcast itself. I know you've done lots of volunteering, so we'll probably talk about some of those things as well. And I know that you're also a published author, which is where this name, Abla Basma, comes in, I think. So you can tell us a little bit more about that as well. But I don't want this podcast to really be just me kind of reading your CV. I want us to get to know, I guess, the real Basma, the person behind the CV. So before we talk about your experiences within education, why don't you tell us a little bit more about who you are? Who is Basma outside the person, Basma?
All right. Thank you so much for the lovely introduction. Well, I guess I really I'm a family person. I really love my family so much. So I sort of try to put my family first when I got like two choices to make. Especially that, you know, with the career growth and the pressure on social media that you have to be achieving a certain success in a certain way. So it's a little bit difficult. You know, like sometimes I just feel I am not doing my best all the time because there is always this kind of comparison on social media. Like everyone is making a certain success in career and you just like have your own different priorities, you know, like your small family, your friends. So I think like outside teaching, I'm a bit of a quiet person, still a troublemaker at times, but a little bit, you know, like an introvert. But in teaching, like I'm an extrovert. I just like to meet people. I like the social life, meeting new students every now and then. You know, it's like I love being a part of their history, you know, like when you meet a new student and you just feel like you want to do something so that someday they might remember, or they feel that you made a difference to them at a certain point in their life.
Yeah. I think a lot of people, I certainly can relate to this idea of being slightly introverted outside of work. I think when people do meet me face to face outside of the work context, they probably do think that I'm quite quiet, but in work at the same, quite extroverted, don't come across particularly introverted. So it's interesting that we have these different personas, the way we feel, I guess, within a certain context. So I can definitely relate to that. And I can relate to the family thing as well. It's quite interesting listening to you to say those things, because I guess when I mentioned that teachers used to just get a job out of school, they would be part of that community, very ingrained within that particular community. But they didn't face, I guess, the pressures that lots of teachers now do face, which is this pressure. Should I be online? Should I have 10,000 LinkedIn followers? Should I be posting every day? How does that connect to the job that I do teaching in the classroom? There is a lot of pressures, I think, and balancing out, I'm mentioning that because balancing that out with family can be quite difficult. Even I've felt that a lot. How do I put family first, but still retain this, you know, work-life balance and this online 24/7 balance as well? It's very difficult, I think. Yeah.
I agree.
So I want to actually, it seems you've said something. I want to pull something out of your bio, which is that you said you believe that age is just a number and life is as valuable as the amount of experience that you go through. So you obviously are very into experiential learning, the volunteering you do, and the skills that you try to learn. So you keep volunteering, you keep trying to learn, and you keep trying to beat your previous volunteering record, which is nice. I like the fact you set these little goals for yourself and you do lots of different things. But one of the things that you've mentioned is that you like to try to put yourself in the position of a learner. So if you're starting to do something like learn the guitar, you empathize with what it's like to be one of your own learners. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about that kind of philosophy?
Okay, so I think by being a teacher for so many years, we just like get into that kind of comfort zone where you think it's what you're doing is really simple, you know, like if you're teaching someone the alphabet, for you, it's really simple. Like everyone should be, you should find it easy. Yes. So when I try to learn something new every now and then, I just discover that the basics for me are very challenging, while for my teacher, they are really simple. So, for example, when I tried to learn the guitar, my teacher was trying to teach me like the basics of music and all of the stuff that they have. He told me that I don't have a musical ear, and he tried to like to make me understand the difference between two different tones, and I just like I couldn't get it. And he told me, you cannot find any difference, you cannot hear any difference. And I told him, no, they are the same for me. So he was like, he found me like a hopeless case. And every time I try something new, just like I'm faced with this struggle with my teacher because they somehow find me a hopeless case. I just like, I cannot do it well. The first time I tried to learn how to ride a bike, I was like 25 years old. And it was the first time in my whole life to try to something like this. And I actually bought a bike. It was blue, and I gave it a name. It was
What do
like
you call it?
Baskuta, like biscuit, but in a feminine manner, like a female biscuit, you know.
Okay.
Despite it was blue, it should have been pink to to be called this way. So when I tried to learn it, I actually fell down a lot, and it was like really ridiculous because like an old lady like trying to learn how to ride a bike, and I fall in the street a lot, and it was really challenging. So but in that experience, I got people supporting me, so I actually managed to learn it, and I had it for a long time, and I took it for a long distance. And this shows me that every time I have a good teacher or someone who would actually be understanding and kind to me in the process, not necessarily even sharing a big amount of information, simply giving me some steps, hacks, and be there, you know. So I learned that as a teacher, I should always remember how to be a student, because they are struggling and they just need someone to assure them that I'm just there for them. I'm not going to judge if they are not doing a good job.
Yeah, it's a really nice story, and it makes us, I think, empathize a little bit with students, because you're right. We do think we're like they're put on a bird, like they're different. Like, how can you not see this? And we get kind of frustrated with students, and for them, yeah, it could just be that they're like, this is to me is exactly the same. I don't understand. So I guess it sounds like important qualities of being a teacher for you is understanding, patience, empathy, lots of these types of skills that teachers, I guess, need to develop, right?
Yeah, I agree. A teacher should try to be all of this.
Yeah, nice. Okay, so let's move on and talk about your experiences as an educator. So what were your motivations for getting into education in the first place? How did you start? And I guess, what have you learned along the way? Because we've got, probably 15 years of experience in education. Some of the things you've already mentioned, but there might be other things.
Well, if I'm going to start with how I started, I would say that I didn't really like teaching in the beginning. I really had a problem because when I was a student in the school, I was, as a learner, I was, in the beginning, I was an introvert. I was like really shy. I cannot mingle with people. It would be really embarrassing for me if I had to speak in front of others. And like my heart rate would increase. My hands would get sweaty, and I still didn't get rid of this until now, actually. But as a student, I was like really afraid all the time. And I had some teachers who were a little bit, I wouldn't say aggressive, but their methodology at that time, it was a little bit tough for me as a learner, as a girl, as everything. So I was always scared as a child. And even when my teacher, I remember one of my math teachers, he actually hit me every day when I was in the school. Like for 2 years, I was in primary school, like just a child. And I always thought that it's my fault that I cannot understand math and that I'm not good in it. And I was afraid even to tell my mom and dad about this experience, because I thought that they are going to blame me. Until certain day, I just like had enough with all of this beating. Like every day, he just tests us in the class, and those who do it right, we clap for them, and those who do it wrong, he just beats them, like with a stick on their hand. And when I told my mom and dad, they just told me, no, it's not your fault. You just do not understand math. You just need some help. And so my father started to help me, and they started to provide me with extra help, and I started to get better. And even when I grew as an adult, I started to understand numbers better. So no, I didn't like teaching in the beginning, because for me, the teachers were tough people who are just going to punish us if we are not good at something. Until I just grew older, and then I went to Faculty of Education, where I had this experience in a school. It was like school training, or like you just train to become a teacher after graduation. And when we were in a class, and there were these girls out there, they were chatting and talking, and like when girls get together, they just could not stop the story going. And I just told myself, I don't want to be the person who would hit these girls someday. I don't want to cause them any kind of trauma. I don't want to make them suffer. So I didn't know what to do. I was not prepared for that kind of experience, not well enough. So all I had to do is to rely on my personality, what I would like to have if I were in their shoes. And so I said, I like stories. I like someone to tell me a story. Until this moment, I like someone to tell me a story. Even before sleeping, like when I cannot sleep, I just ask someone to tell me a story. So I decided I'm going to tell them a story, to draw on the board, and to engage them in the story, to give the characters names. And at that point, I realized I didn't need a stick. I didn't need to shout at them. I just needed to tell them a story to grab their attention. And I realized there is a different way than the way I was taught. And it started from there. The moment they were silent, the moment their eyes lit, this is like, it was a changing moment for me to like being in a class.
Yeah, and it's such a nice story, and it makes me think of a lot of things. I mean, I by and large escaped that type of educational system. It was largely being phased out in the UK by the time I was in school. It was still there. There were a few teachers who would quite often carry around things like a stick, or they would throw board rubbers at people. So it did still happen, but it makes me think more of my parents' generation. Both of them went through very strict educational systems, and they still carry, not physical scars, but they still carry those, I think, emotional scars. I mean, I guess there's been a lot of work done in education around, I guess this all boils down to motivation, right? It's that carrot versus the stick mentality. Are you trying to lead them, or are you trying to force them through education? And I guess traditional educational systems were very much probably overwhelming, and a lot of teachers are probably under a lot of pressure, but they just felt like they needed, I need to maintain control and force everybody from point A to point B, and prove that I've done my job. I think attitudes around that have kind of changed a little bit, right?
Right now, it's different. Like I guess even sometimes it's extremely different. Like you know, if we're not going to force people or use the stick, we're just going to be like too nice and too lenient, you know, like do whatever you want. And if you want to study or not, if you want to get, if you can get a good grade or not. And so I think either way is not right, you know, like as a student, I do not allow my students to insult one another, for example, or to be not nice or not to be courteous enough with the teacher. So there has to be some limits, you know, like we're building certain boundaries where you know where your place is. I respect you and you respect me. We do not offend one another, especially that nowadays there are very expensive schools. And for some reason, some kids or some students would attach the idea of like, my parent is paying for my education, or they are paying a lot of money, so I get to insult everyone here just with using my money. And this also is the extreme opposite. It shouldn't be like this. Like if you're paying a lot of money, it's because you're getting quality education, or getting some advantages, but not getting the right to step on others' rights.
Yeah, of course.
There is a huge difference.
Yeah, and I guess this is probably why there's now a lot more things like global citizenship education integrated into classes, because that's what it's about, right? Existing with a group, how to respect people, how to value them, how to see difference as a strength, all of these types of things that we talk a lot about now, I think. Yeah, interesting. It's interesting for me to try and learn about I guess the Egyptian educational system and different areas within that, as you mentioned, whether it's private, whether it's ministry, state type schools at different ages, how it's changed over time. So it's interesting for me to kind of learn about education in Egypt and how it's changing. How do you see education in Egypt in maybe 5 years' time or 10 years' time? Do you think it's heading in the right direction at least? Well, that's a difficult question. I'm sorry.
It's no. Well, you know, I'm optimistic because I see teachers from very humble backgrounds with absolutely no resources, and they are really doing their best every day to give their students something that they might have never had in their life. So I'm gonna go with being optimistic.
Good.
Even
I'm optimistic as well. I'm with you.
Yeah, like because it's all about the people eventually. It's not really about the resources. It's not about anything else. It's just about each individual in their place doing the best that they have. So if a teacher is in an international school, in a very expensive school, and then they decide that they are not going to do their best, so despite that they have the technology, despite that they have like all the resources helping them, it's not just gonna make a difference. And another teacher could be in a very humble background with almost no blackboard even, and they are doing their best. They could actually get very high caliber students who could actually become doctors, engineers, and all kinds of fields coming from these backgrounds. So it's about the teachers eventually.
Yeah, and I think I've said this lots of times. Education is about relationships, not about what you have and what you have access to. It's about relationships between people and instilling senses of passion, finding out what people are interested in, driving them, showing them opportunities so that they can take that forward themselves. That's how I feel. I still sit in the optimistic camp. It's difficult sometimes to stay in the optimistic camp, but I'm glad we're both still there. Okay, so you've brought up, you've led us, I think, seamlessly into the next part of the conversation, which is about you as an entrepreneur. So let's talk a little bit about your startup, which is called Teflship. How did you come up with that idea? And how did you kind of bring it from, an idea in the back of your head while you're having a cup of tea to something that actually exists and helps other people?
Actually, it wasn't really my idea. It was my husband's. Yeah. So I gotta give him the credit for this. Yes.
That's the great thing about education, is it doesn't have to be ours. It can be other people's, and we build on it. So totally okay with that. Collaborative activity there.
Well, actually, I think if he heard me saying this, he's gonna dance around, you know. When I was a volunteer, I was like volunteering for so many years in a charity organization, and I was giving courses. I really loved being in an offline class on site, you know, interacting with students face to face. And I get to know all of these beautiful stories about them, their challenges, their lives. And then my husband was a volunteer as well. And he just told me, why don't we try to, we were not married at that time. There was absolutely nothing going on. And we were just volunteering. And he was a very high caliber. And he told me, why don't you take your skills? Why don't we try to do what you're doing right now, but on a bigger scale? Like instead of just helping 15 people in front of you, you can be helping more people uh, around. And just by taking this online, and because like I was really afraid of the camera and or anything outside my comfort zone, I told him, no, I just love being in a class, interacting with people. I'm not gonna do this. And you know, like he kept a little bit nagging on the idea, and he just tells me it's gonna be like an impact that is going to last even after we die. And you know, he started to, you know, give me this kind of vision. Despite that, I was the visionary, and he was like the my practical hand, or he was the one who was executing. But in that point, he gave me that kind of vision, and I told him, okay, let's try it. And we were thinking about what kind of videos should we make. And when we decided, we were thinking about, let's make it in English, let's teach people English in videos. But then I told him there are a lot of resources at that time. And we really didn't, like, what am I going to add with another resource? So we thought about making teaching videos, because in our community at that time, it wasn't as popular as now. There were not that kind of a lot of teacher trainers. There wasn't there weren't a lot of courses at that time to help teachers. It was only one course that was really popular, and it was pretty expensive for us here. For someone even to take it, they have to be living in the main city in the country. So anyone who was outside that city, it was really impossible for them to pay all of that money and to come and stay for more than a month in the city. It was, no one could have done that. So we decided, why don't we share some of the experiences that I got in videos? So the people who are living, for example, we're in Cairo, the people who would be living in Aswan, like 16 hours by train difference, they would watch it if they ever got it. And when we made our first playlist, our first course, suddenly, you know, it wasn't just about the people in our country. We found people from the Arab world contacting us for consultation, for advice, because they had challenges and they wanted someone to think with them. And this is where things got a little bit out of hand. And this is when we started to make more videos, and we started to go into the entrepreneurship world. You know, like trying to turn this into a sustainable, I'm not going to say business, but a sustainable social enterprise where we could actually help make it, you know, keep going. So it wouldn't die after some time.
Yeah, it's really nice, and I come from a development background, so I love listening to these types of stories. And you're right that, you know, I think one of the challenges that education as an enterprise itself faces is that it is often quite top down. It's very centralized. You know, if you are in the biggest city, you get the best opportunities. If you're in a certain country, you get more opportunities than other countries. And you know, it's connected to money. We can't say that it's not. So you know, where is investment being made? And I think this is interesting that you say other MENA countries, because you know, quite often external global companies, things like publishers, will focus on places like Egypt, big populations. They focus on Cairo, Alexandria. But then, yeah, you go to slightly smaller countries, or countries that perhaps have had conflicts in the past. They don't have, like, say, that access. So I think it's really nice that you've seen that. So I guess that the first part around this entrepreneurship is, I guess, initiative, having ideas and having the drive to follow through with them. I think that's the key initial component to entrepreneurship, right? Is having ideas and just, I guess, experimenting, saying,
Yes.
I'm going to see where this will go. And having I guess like your husband, having this vision that it could be something bigger than what we're doing now. The moment you reach 15 people, you could reach 150. Once you reach that 150, you could reach 1,500. And what will it take to get from one to the next? I guess that's the entrepreneurial mindset. Let's look at, I mean, since you've actually started it, it's effectively online TEFL courses. And I like the fact that you've done some of them in Arabic and some of them in English. There's a kind of crossover so that it's, again, accessible to people who are teachers but may have low levels of English. We got to accept that teachers in more rural locations perhaps don't have very high levels of English themselves. So we need to make some of those things quite accessible. You know, why does a course around classroom management have to be in English because they're an English teacher? It's more accessible for them if they can do it in Arabic. So you've thought about that, which is really nice. But you've got lots. You've got like more than 80 courses. You've got, I mean, these are huge numbers, 1.3 million views, 40,000 watching hours from around, not just this part of the world, but I think people outside places like India, China and Korea have started to look at your videos. And I think one of the things that you don't really mention here, but I'm sure it has had an impact, is that you're also a catalyst, I think, for other entrepreneurs. They see what you do in probably places like Korea, and they think, you know what, I can do that. I can set up my own and do it in Korean. And you have this influence on other people. That's, I think, also entrepreneurial. It's not just seeing like, okay, I've got this and this is my achievement, but having that influence on people to do their own thing with your ideas, which is collaborative. I think that's nice.
Actually, in one of the competitions that we participated to represent Egypt, it was like they were having countries or entrepreneurs from countries in the Arab world and the African world, bringing them together. And especially all of us, we were having social enterprises or having a startup that would be serving our communities. So I remember one of the situations when one of the people we met there, he was like from a different country, and he just told me, I really love the idea that you were doing, and I'm also very interested in education. And he was a teacher too, and he said that I want to create the same idea but in my own country. And that was really beautiful, because you just feel, as you said, that we are all in our or each other's lives as catalysts. You know, you see someone, I remember like in our last meetup when you told me that when you made the podcast, someone from a different country told you, I would like to make a podcast like this in my country as well, so that I can bring the teachers together. So that was really amazing.
Yeah, and it brings us right back to that full circle, that education is about relationships and about connecting people. Because if you had never done that, that guy may never have had that idea. And there's some students in, let's say it was Korea, there's some students in Korea who are benefiting now educationally because of something that has happened somewhere else in the world with a person that they'll never meet. And that, I think, that's the power of education, not just going to class and learning what's in the course book. It's being able to take that and apply it and influence people that you'll never meet. I think that's a real benefit of it. I think this is why we remain optimistic in the world of education, is because that's what we see. We see that aspect, I think.
Yeah, it's like the butterfly effect, you know.
Yeah.
So
okay, so, and you mentioned you won this this award. So you were part of this Egyptian initiative. It was the Egyptian initiative in the Arab and African Platform for Youth, Volunteer and Entrepreneurs, which is a long title, but it was sponsored by the Egyptian Ministry of Youth and Sports and the Arab Voluntary Union. This was a few years ago. It was pre-COVID. And again, an interesting point, I think, to the work that you've done is that now it feels very familiar to us. There's online courses. I was with a friend in a cafe last night, and she was telling me about some new app that she had, and she could subscribe. She was learning French. And I was thinking, you know, pre-COVID, there was some of this stuff existed, but a lot of it was around learning. So you could do online English learning courses as a student. But as you say, for teachers, there definitely wasn't a lot. It was, you went to face-to-face professional development days, publishers had on face-to-face teacher training, lots of courses were done face-to-face, trainers wanted to be in a classroom with teachers, doing sessions with them. So yeah, it was all face-to-face. I don't remember a lot of online stuff. So it was interesting that you kind of delved into that space, and then COVID kind of kicked in, and now everybody's kind of everybody's doing it, I guess. Here we all are. But anyway, you won this competition, female entrepreneurs for, sorry, was it L? You have to remind me. It was a teacher's prize. That was two things, right?
Well, I won different prizes. One of them was for the female entrepreneurs in the Ministry of Communication. At that time, we had a website, and let's say it was like a MOOC, like an online platform where the teachers were learning, on the website, like instead of just like a YouTube video, we were trying to build a whole MOOC, and we did take like a couple of good steps. And we won the prize, like we got the first rank. And after some time we were met with other challenges. Like lately everything just collapsed. Our accounts were hacked, our even Facebook pages were hacked. We lost all of them, and we only saved our YouTube channel. Alhamdulillah, it was just the one thing that and it was the most important thing, because this is where all of our lives work was there. Like I just woke up at a certain day and I found one of my team members sending me a WhatsApp message saying that her account was hacked, and she was like an admin on all of our social media accounts. And so as a result, everything else was hacked accordingly. And I just like, I was sitting in front of my laptop, and I was like, for a moment there, it was like losing a child. Just like everything we have ever built, it was just gone for a moment. And I remember my feeling at the time. I said, like, it's like to God we shall return, like as if someone died. And I said, okay, so what we did for God. So hopefully, inshallah, it will never be forgotten. We will be rewarded anyway. So we just started to to think how we're going to recover from this. And thankfully, when the YouTube channel was saved, it was like, at least the videos are there. We might have lost everything else. We even lost our contacts with all of the teachers we have ever had a communication means with them, but the content was there, and that was a blessing for us, because these videos were like our babies. We couldn't just
Of course, yeah. And I mean, I was going to ask you, how you felt about that, but yeah, it sounds like you've explained a little bit, and it's extremely tough kind of experience to go through. But it also, I guess, going back to the entrepreneurial part, that is part of being an entrepreneur, right? It is experimenting, but it's also steep learning curves, because you are putting yourself out there when you're an entrepreneur. And it doesn't matter whether you're an entrepreneur in this context that we're talking about, or whether you're a business entrepreneur. I know lots of different entrepreneurs, and some of them have succeeded in one thing and then failed something and lost everything. This is what an entrepreneur, they thrive on that. I think entrepreneur mindsets on that. I'm going all in. It's a bit like gamblers, like everything's in, going all in on it. But yeah, and I guess there's definitely takeaways even from your experience. How make sure you're always, and I guess it goes back again to relationships, talking to people who have got those experiences and trying to learn from them so you don't make the same mistakes. Protect yourself in an online environment. Make sure you've got, 2 hard drives in different countries with backups of all the things that you've got. How do you keep data? How do you do all of those different types of things that I guess we learn along the way? But yeah, interesting to hear your experience, and hopefully if anybody is thinking, or some people who might be listening might be along that path, there are definitely people who I connect with who are doing lots of different types of these activities. So it might just give them things to think about, because it definitely comes to the back of your mind. You don't think you're ever going to get hacked and you're going to lose everything that you've ever done. it's not there, right? But it happens.
It happened.
It happened. Yeah, it doesn't just happen.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, and then to finish off, because we're coming up, we've got a couple of minutes left. What about your more contemporary work? What are you doing at the moment? Are you working at the moment? Are you doing anything that's supporting teachers? You still got your YouTube page, so perhaps you're doing some work on that. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're doing at the moment?
Well, every phase of my life, I try to learn something new. So just like, at a certain time I was learning how to play a guitar, and obviously I failed in that. Other times I tried to learn swimming, again, failed in that. Like I swim like a dog. It just didn't work with me at all. And I tried to learn even, how to draw. I remember my husband told me I draw like a child. I mean, I cannot even uh, make the color in the right place or inside the circle I'm drawing in. So every time I try to learn something, it just like fires back. I do not get it right. So I learned from that experience that it doesn't really matter if I get it right or not. What matters is that I keep learning, because for some reason it helps me later on to meet someone from my students, from my community, who is struggling with learning, and I could understand how he is or she is struggling. So right now I'm still teaching, as I am, like teaching English, teaching or training teachers, and learning also about any new trends that happen. So for example, if we're talking about personal branding, I will be just learning this and try to apply it myself to help me with my career, and then I start to move on, or to move this experience to help others. And then right now I'm learning about artificial intelligence and how the different tools could help me with teaching, so this way I can transfer that kind of knowledge to someone else who could benefit from it.
Yeah.
So let's say that my life is around like taking care of my family, or the people I love the most, and just teaching and learning in parallel. Because anytime I just teach without learning anything new, I just feel like I cannot keep going, or I'm not satisfied enough. There's something missing.
And it seems like you like to learn lots of new things. You've got these examples you've given us, swimming, but you've also learned some other things, right? Mixed martial arts was one, MMA. So
Yes, I learned that for around a year. And I remember the first couple of months, everyone was hitting me. I was like, anytime I go into, like in the ring, and if I'm against another girl, she hits me. If I'm playing against a child, he hits me. And it was like, I don't know, they were like mopping the floor with me. And until that moment, I realized, so they are going to hit me anyways. So I have to defend myself. So in the beginning, I was like, already the result that I'm gonna get out of there all bruised and not gonna get my right. So I started to hit back, and it was really funny because in the beginning, when I would hit someone, I would just say sorry, like I hit and I say sorry, and it was like no one was doing this, and so I started to be able to go into a fight. And I went into a fight with one of the girls who was also a trainer, and she was a professional fighter. She would like travel to other countries and in competitions. And let's say that it was quite a match. And at that moment, I just realized, okay, I did it. So, and that's enough. I cannot keep going anymore because it was quite painful. So yes, I also tried horse riding, and I failed from the first day. I just fell from the horse while it was standing. I didn't even move one step. So at least it tells me to deselect from the experience I'd like to have.
and then you can't learn what you like until you try things that you don't like, I think. And it's
Exactly.
and you experiment, try. It sounds like you just love trying lots of different new things, and you'll learn something different from each of them. MMA, you might not become a professional MMA fighter. I hope probably you won't, but it's not just about learning how to fight. It's things like discipline, it's strategy, being able to read other people, which again is a communicative skill. So we learn skills which are transferable all the time when we experiment and we try new things, whether that's learning a new language, like you put on there, you learn Italian, to learning a mixed martial art, something very kind of physical, or whether it's just, learning how to doodle, and, you learn things like patience and practice and perseverance and all these things. And they're all important, I think, for students to learn in their little educational journeys that they go through. Okay, I think that brings us to the end. We've done 45 minutes. So I would love to thank you for sharing with us your wealth of experiences, all of the different types of things that you've been doing. If anybody has any questions for Basma, please feel free to let us know. I'm sure she'd be more than happy to take a minute to answer them. But Basma, thanks very much for joining us. It's been such an interesting conversation. It's been really wonderful getting to know you and your experiences better. Would you like to finish by sharing any of your favorite tips for teachers? Any favorite teaching tips or tips around education?
Okay. Oh, that's quite challenging.
Yeah,
like if I get to say one tip before leaving, so I guess sometimes we just like fall into the pressure of trying to be like other teachers from our past, or teachers we see on social media. And it's not just the new generations or the younger generations who are also falling under that kind of pressure, but also the older generations, like teachers who are 50 or 60 years old. They feel like everyone is doing something and I have to do like them. So I think that we should try to remind ourselves that it's okay just like to try to be yourself. Maybe try something new, but at the same time you remember that maybe it's not me. Maybe I'm not the kind of person who likes to be on social media a lot, or maybe I'm not that kind of person who likes to make videos. Just like you try to remember who you really are in the middle of all of these comparisons. So this way there wouldn't be a lot of struggle. There wouldn't be struggle inside of you between the person you think you should be and the person that you really are. So when you find that kind of balance, the balance that you can try something new or experiment with something new, but at the same time you remember what you like and what you dislike, I think it's going to help a lot in being a balanced person that is going to reflect eventually on being a balanced teacher, because students like teachers who are confident or comfortable in their own skin without trying to be, like I'm the awesome or always confident person. I'm just like normal. I get scared. I cry at night sometimes, and all of these things. So I think that's a
nice tip. I like it. Yeah. Yeah. The final words of wisdom: be yourself and remain true to who you are. Yeah, I like that. It's nice. That's a nice one to finish with, I think. Okay, great. Thanks everybody for joining us this afternoon. Of course, go and check out our other ELT Time MENA episodes. This is season 2, so there's 18 from season 1, and this is the 10th one in season 2. We're going to be back, I think, in about 10 days' time with another episode. Do connect with Basma, connect with her on LinkedIn. I see you post loads of things all the time, so there's loads of interesting stuff there that I'm sure she's sharing. So connect with her, obviously connect with me as well. And thank you very much again, once more, Basma. And we'll look forward to seeing you all in a couple of weeks for another ELT Time MENA podcast. Enjoy the rest of your day. Ramadan Kareem to you all, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. Basma, take care.
You too. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.